Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am your Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons, discussing some Manager of the Year considerations. We'll get the results later this evening. We have to show some appreciation for Andrés Galarraga. We'll talk about the looming deadline for protecting players ahead of the Rule 5 draft coming up next month. And we'll take a walk around the NL West. What are the other teams in the Rockies division doing right now? But let's get things started off with a bit of positive piece of topic, if you will. It's not news per se, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, because I didn't talk about it yesterday when the post-game show, if you will, the post-award show with Paul Skeens winning the National League Rookie of the Year and Luis Gil winning it for the Yankees in the American League, that the Colorado Rockies have themselves a Rookie of the Year award winner. Only one. And it was Jason Jennings back in 2002. So wanted to give him a shout out. It was really cool getting a chance to meet him back in 2023 when the Rockies were rolling out a lot of their franchise great players during that celebratory 30th anniversary season. Jason Jennings was a first-round pick out of Baylor in 99, debuted 2 years later, August 23rd, 2001. It has to go down as quite probably the greatest big league debut of any player in baseball history. Seriously. When you talk about your first game and what you were able to do, it was, again, it's something like we're never going to see again because of the designated hitter. But what Jason Jennings was able to do at Shea Stadium in New York City, 5-hit complete game shutout against the New York Mets. But he also, at the plate, 3 for 5, 2 RBI, and yes, a home run. You can't best that now. In 2024, 2025, you can't be better than that in your major league debut. In 2002, he did win the Rookie of the Year award, went 16-8, had a 4.52 ERA. So not a great ERA in general. We know what Coors Field can do. It was actually the first year of the Humidor, so that was a 1.06 ERA plus, but kind of a down year for everyone else in the NL. Although according to Baseball Reference, their version of WAR actually had Austin Kearns of the Reds with a higher WAR, 4.1. Mark Pryor, almost that year's version of Paul Skeens in many ways, 3.2 WAR and only 17 starts, both better than Jennings' 2.7 B WAR. But hey, if the Rockies are typically going to be on the losing side of a close contest because they're the Rockies and they're in Colorado, if that's how you think things work, well, then you can feel good about this one because, hey, maybe Jennings wasn't the best, but bottom line, he did win the award. He was, and forever will be the 2002 National League Rookie of the Year award winner, received 27 of 32 first-place votes. Kearns got 2. Brad Wilkerson, who finished second, got 2 first-place votes. And Kaz Ishii, who finished fourth, got 1 first-place vote. Tuesday, we do find out this evening about the American League and National League Managers of the Year, the finalists in the AL, all from the AL Central. Stephen Vogt of the Guardians, Matt Quatraro of the Royals, AJ Hinch of the Detroit Tigers. And in the National League, 1 from each division. Pat Murphy from the Brewers in the Central, Carlos Mendoza from the Mets in the NL East, and Mike Schilt of the Padres from the NL West. Now, should be noted, 2 Rockies have won the Manager of the Year award in the past, the very first coming in 1995. Don Baylor, first ever appearance by the Rockies in the postseason. At that time, that was the quickest an expansion team had ever reached the postseason. He received votes in 2 other years as well. And the second Manager of the Year award in Rockies history, Jim Tracy, back in 2009, brought his team back from the dead after the Rockies front office decided to go away from Clint Hurdle. Jim Tracy came in and they came roaring back. And if you talk to some guys who played on both the 2007 and the 2009 team, a lot of them think the 2009 team was actually better than the 2007 squad. Other managers in Rockies history to appear on someone's ballot: Buddy Bell, 6th place finish in the year 2000. Clint Hurdle, third place finish in 2007, and Bud Black, a pair of third place finishes in 2017 and 2018. Only Jim Leland, the Hall of Famer, and Walt Weiss, the only Rockies player to manage the team, never earned acknowledgement for their work as the Rockies skipper. Let's talk about the NL West. Let's start things off with the World Series champ, Los Angeles Dodgers. They've got a lot of work cut out for them this offseason, as they have a ton of free agents, as they typically do, signing guys to 1-2 year deals, giving them somewhat of a pillow contract, and getting them into the Dodgers system and getting acclimated to that and say, hey, you know what? If you go year to year and you got a good chance to win a World Series, that might be better than taking something a little bit more long term. They've got 3 starting pitchers that are on the free agent market right now. Wouldn't surprise me if 2 of them came back into the fold. Jack Flaherty, Walker Buehler, and yes, Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw, you really can't imagine him going anywhere else this offseason. He'll be able to find a way to figure out a deal with the Dodgers. And then Flaherty and Buehler, it'll be interesting to see where those markets end up. I know Atlanta has shown some interest in Walker Buehler. Flaherty, he's from that part of California, Harvard Westlake grad. So Flaherty would probably be much more of a favorite to re-sign with the Dodgers than someone like a Walker Buehler. But could all 3 of them come back? It very well could be, because we are talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers. Teoscar Hernandez, also going to be a free agent and is one right now, along with reliever Blake Trinan. They headline their cast of players that are currently not on their 2025 roster. Brusdar Graterol is on the 2025 roster, but he is going to be out for the first half of next year. He did get right labrum surgery last week. He already missed most of 2024 with shoulder and hamstring injuries. He was hamstrung, I should say, with hamstring injuries. And it's sort of less of a bigger deal because we are talking about a reliever, and the Dodgers can manifest themselves a really good relief pitcher virtually out of nowhere. We know that they have a great track record of doing that. And it's also less of a bigger deal because Shohei Ohtani is going to be back on the mound in 2025. Stepped aside after having that UCL surgery for all of 2024. I, for one, did think that he was going to pitch at some point, whether it was the final day of the regular season against the Rockies in Colorado, because why not? Or maybe at some point in the postseason. They discussed it through every step of the way, but ultimately was Shohei Ohtani a better option than even the worst reliever that they had in their bullpen? I think the answer was probably no. And maybe Ohtani would have been as good as the last guy off the bench in the bullpen, but the risk for everything that the Dodgers had invested in him going forward for 9 more years, trying to pitch and to hit and possibly even go to the outfield to make his team that much better so that they can use the DH for someone who maybe needs it a little bit more. Those are all discussions we were not privy to, but I think that was part of the math that went behind the scenes as to why we didn't end up getting a chance to see Ohtani pitch in 2024. It worked out fine. It worked out great for the Dodgers. They got their first parade since 1988, and now Ohtani will be back on the mound. Remains to be seen what his role is going to be. Keep in mind, MLB did change the rules. They did change the rules to say that if your starting pitcher comes out of the game and is also your DH, you do not lose the DH. If Shohei Ohtani is coming out of the bullpen to pitch the 9th and it goes into extra innings and his spot in the order comes up, that is not protected under the new rules. So the DH does get lost at that point. So that might give either MLB reason to change the rule again, to make more rules that specifically suit Shohei Ohtani, which I'm not opposed, because Ohtani makes the game better. Or it just means the Dodgers will have to deploy him as a starting pitcher. That's the bottom line. That's just how they're going to have to go about it. And they won't be able to utilize him out of the bullpen for fear of losing his bat in the lineup. Also around the NL West. No, I got one more piece of news for the Dodgers. A couple more pieces of news, excuse me. Mookie Betts moving back to second base. For good? Yeah, probably. I think Betts is going to be their second baseman and occasionally play some shortstop. You could see that really how the Dodgers used him in the first half of the 2024 season, where if you needed the left-handed bat in the lineup for Gavin Lux was playing second, Betts was at short. If you wanted the right-handed bat and Rojas is your shortstop, Betts is going to be over at second base. And so that frees up a little bit of room in your outfield. That probably increases the likelihood of someone like a Teoscar Hernandez coming back. It also could mean the Dodgers re-sign Teoscar Hernandez and also sign Juan Soto. Soto and his agent, Scott Boras, reportedly meeting with the Dodgers today in the Dodgers front office. And does Los Angeles have the money? Sure. Are they past the competitive balance tax, the luxury tax threshold, where they're going to be paying on top of what is already going out for their contracts and their players? Sure. But that's one of the luxuries that can happen when you are an international brand now, like the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Yankees are the number one brand in the world, but it really wouldn't surprise me by the end of next season, if not already, the Dodgers become the number one worldwide brand because of everything that they are bringing in the Asian markets, in Japan, China, Korea, Shohei Ohtani being there, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. We'll wait and see what happens with Roki Sasaki. But they've got money to burn. They could afford to bring back both Teoscar Hernandez and Jack Flaherty and sign Juan Soto for what many expect to be somewhere between $500 million and $600 million. And is that bad for baseball? I'm not going to say that it is. I don't think that's bad for baseball. I can certainly say it's not good for baseball. I just wouldn't say it's bad for baseball. We've seen super teams get assembled many, 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 many times, and it doesn't guarantee anything in the sport of baseball. It might guarantee you're going to have a pretty good regular season, and it might guarantee that your team on paper is better than just about every team that you play 162 times a season, but it doesn't guarantee anything for the postseason. So while baseball doesn't have that hard salary cap that the other sports do, I don't know that it really needs it, because there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to winning a World Series. Getting to the postseason certainly favors those clubs that have a lot of money, but winning the World Series is a horse of a different color. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Juan Soto, there's been some discussion that perhaps he wants to stay more on the East Coast. We know that he was with the Padres for a season and a half. That was not by any volition of his own. He was traded there from the Washington Nationals, but the Nats train in Florida, as do the New York Yankees. The Padres, he had one spring training in Arizona. And look, the East Coast is a lot closer to the Dominican Republic, where he's originally from. And so I think there's a preference there for that. But at the end of the day, the best deal is going to be the best deal. And winning is a priority for Juan Soto. As I said last week, or as we kind of discussed last week with Jesse Friedman, and I like the way he put it, the Yankees have to re-sign Juan Soto. The Yankees are going to have to get it done. There's no way that they are going to allow another team to take Juan Soto from them. They're going to have to do everything that it takes, and I think that they will. Just like they couldn't allow Aaron Judge to leave, the Yankees cannot allow Juan Soto to go. And so it's for that reason, I think he will re-sign with the Yankees. Also, some discussion that Soto might sign before we even get to the winter meetings down in Dallas on December 8th and 9th through the 11th. And I think that's a real smart decision by his agent, Scott Boras, because Boras slow played it last year and it did not benefit him at all. And Soto is the first domino. Once he goes, now everybody else can fall in line. Now Pete Alonso. If the Mets aren't getting Juan Soto, now the Mets need to probably work out a deal with Pete Alonso. And if you didn't get Pete Alonso and you wanted him, well, now you can work out a deal with Christian Walker. So there is a major domino effect that happens with Juan Soto. And I think because Boras has a ton of other clients still, he's got to get that one out of the way first. and then he can figure out where the rest of his guys are going to end up signing. In San Francisco, Giants, major shuffle at the top of their front office. Farhan Zaidi out as president of baseball operation, in Gerald Dempsey Posey. That's right, Buster Posey, still a relatively young guy. He is now running the show there in San Francisco. He ends up promoting Zach Manassian to become the team's GM. You might recognize that last name, Manassian. That is because Zach Manassian is the brother of Angels general manager Perry Manassian. They are actually the first pair of brothers to ever be general managers, not just at the same time, but ever. Both of them doing that. Posey recently promoted former teammate Randy Wynn from a role in pro scouting to vice president of player development. And just breaking on Tuesday from Jeff Passan, Giants are also hiring their former GM, Bobby Evans, and Jeff Berry, who served as Buster Posey's agent. Both of them are coming on to be advisors to Buster Posey. So they've got themselves a winner in Buster Posey. 3 World Series in 5 years, and Posey's running the show. Not the owners, Buster Posey running the show to try to get this team pointed in the right direction, because despite the fact that the Giants always seem to be in the middle, maybe the top half of the NL West, certainly not the bottom, definitely at least the middle. Keep in mind, the Giants have only made the postseason once in the last 8 years, and they had to do it in historic fashion by winning 107 games completely out of the blue. So they've got to figure out some things, and Posey's going to be a baseball guy, a baseball player, a baseball lifer, is going to be the one making the decisions. Not the owner, but a guy with true, tangible experience on the field and with a winning track record in Buster Posey. And Posey's bringing in his people from outside, from inside, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Giants going forward here. Blake Snell, Mark Canha, Michael Conforto, their biggest free agents out there. San Diego Padres, are they upset right now after Paul Skeens won the National League Rookie of the Year award? What do those two things even have to do with each other? Well, guess what? Yeah, Padres are a little disappointed right now. They're a little bit disappointed, not just because, hey, their guy, Jackson Merrill, did not end up winning the Rookie of the Year award with a season that I think in any other year you probably could make the case would have won. Actually, that could be a fun exercise. Corbin Carroll's 2023 season, which he shot out like a cannon for the first half, then cooled off a little bit. He was great. Jackson Merrill, as I said on Monday, he will finish higher than Paul Skeens in National League MVP voting. Mark my word. I think he is going to finish higher than Paul Skeens, despite the fact that Skeens is the National League Rookie of the Year award. And the reason why the Padres are upset isn't just because, man, our guy got shortchanged. It's because the Padres themselves are getting shortchanged because of this. Now, part of the new CBA created these new rules to help service time manipulation for the Players Association, to prevent teams from keeping guys down in the minors longer so that they get an extra year of club control. And in fact, we are going to reward teams, PPI, player performance incentives. We're going to reward teams that if you start a guy on your opening day roster and he's a top 100 prospect and he wins the National League Rookie of the Year award or American League Rookie of the Year award, you are going to get an extra draft pick the next year. We are going to reward you for doing what you should be doing. We're going to reward you for putting a guy on the opening day roster and not suppressing him down in the minors. So while I wouldn't necessarily say the Pirates suppressed Paul Skeens, you could make that case if you wanted to. I wouldn't. But Paul Skeens finally makes his debut on May 11th, which means he doesn't have a full year of service time. Once you reach 6 years of service time, you become a free agent. But if you are even 1 day short of 6 years of service time, you are not a free agent. That's why some guys, you'll look on their baseball reference page and you'll say, hey, wait a minute. This guy was on this team for 7 years before he was a free agent. It's because he didn't have 6 years of service time. Well, because Paul Skeens won the National League Rookie of the Year award, as is now the tradition, as is now the rules, according to the new CBA, Paul Skeens gets a full year of service time, which now means the Pirates, they thought they were going to have him for 6 more years. That's why they waited to call him up. They didn't. And now they only get him for 5 more years. So that's very fair to Paul Skeens. Despite the fact he had to wait, an extra 6-7 weeks before he can make his debut, he now gets a full year of service time. And Jackson Merrill, had he won the award, the Padres would have received an extra draft pick right after that first round. We've seen the Mariners get that draft pick after Julio Rodriguez. Adley Rutschman earned an extra draft pick for the Orioles. Corbin Carroll did the same thing for the Diamondbacks. And this is something that continues to go on because I believe it's within the first 3 years of a player's rookie campaign that they are eligible for earning a draft pick if they're a top 100 prospect for their team if they finish in the top 3 of MVP voting. So I think the Royals next year are going to get a bonus pick in the draft because of Bobby Witt Jr. finishing top 3 in the AL MVP voting. Now, Roki Sasaki, we know how much they've been linked to the Dodgers. They've also been linked to the Padres. And in fact, according to Jim Bowden of both MLB Network and The Athletic, he doesn't think that Sasaki is going to end up with the Dodgers. I also don't think he will either. I don't. I'd rather the field, right? If you're saying Dodgers versus the field, I'll take the field. But if you're saying Padres versus the field, I still would rather have the field. I just, it's a numbers game. But the Padres, I think, are right there with the Dodgers to possibly sign Roki Sasaki. Darvish is his hero. Ohtani is not Roki Sasaki's hero. It's Yu Darvish. They went to the same high school. Sasaki's father was a coach of Yu Darvish, so they are a lot closer. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, they're contemporaries. They're only a year or two apart from one another. And what's interesting about Sasaki, as I had said a couple weeks ago, and in the full breakdown, you can go back and listen to that one. It's rather evergreen, discussing Roki Sasaki. Who is this guy? How much money is he going to make? How he's, though very similar to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, how he is going to get a contract nothing like the $325 million contract that Yamamoto made. Nothing like that. But I mentioned that Yamamoto will probably wait until after January 15th to sign his deal because that opens the door up to more money. That's the start of a new year for the international signing period. And the discourse has just recently started about whether or not that's fair or not, because if someone like, let's say, the Rockies are in on a Roki Sasaki, it's going to take all of their money to convince him. Not just to convince him. It's just, look, you can have all our money. The Padres did it with Ethan Salas. The Blue Jays did it several years ago when they were signing a 16-year-old Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You just say, look, we're going to get one superstar player and we'll just sign a bunch of guys on the cheap. But we'll give all of our money to that one player. The Rockies don't do that. The Rockies, they'd rather have a lot more quantity than the high-end quality. Because if that guy flames out, what have you got left from that year's class? But if the Rockies were to go in, they'd give all their money to Roki Sasaki, which means the deals in which that the Rockies had negotiated over the last couple years with these Buscones, with the agents to these players in Latin America, now all of a sudden they got to go to these player agents and say, sorry, but we're not going to give that your player that money that we agreed to, that we were willing to. These deals are signed years in advance. And now all of a sudden, Roki Sasaki is going to put, tens of 20s of players back out onto the market. And there's going to be other guys at the bottom of the market that had a deal with a team that all of a sudden that team's saying, you know what, let's go spend that money over here on this other guy who's now available, because the Padres ended up using all of their money on Roki Sasaki, and those 7 guys that they were promising big money to, $100,000+. There's going to be a couple guys making $1 million or $2 million. Now those guys are back out on the market. It's going to cause chaos. It's definitely going to cause chaos behind the scenes in the Latin American market, and it will be interesting, and some teams will benefit from that. But Roki Sasaki very much expected to wait until January 15th to make that decision. Ha-Sung Kim, Jurickson Profar, Tanner Scott, the big free agents for the Padres. And when it comes to the Diamondbacks, talked to Jesse Friedman of PHNX Diamondbacks last week. They got a whole new pitching staff. Right now, the staff is one, but they're going to be getting a whole new pitching staff. Brent Strom out. Mike Fetters, the bullpen coach, out. They did end up signing Brian Kaplan, the assistant pitching coach for the Phillies, who actually becomes the first Phillies coach lured away by another club in the last 5 years for Philadelphia. The Phillies had promoted from within, which is an easy thing to do when not only has your club been successful, which is true of the Phillies, but they're paying higher salaries to these coaches. So it's not just, hey, look, this is a really great thing to have on your resume. They're competitive, realizing, look, if we want the best coaches, we are going to have to pay for them. Diamondbacks have 7 free agents, only 5 really key: Christian Walker, Jock Peterson, Paul Sewald, Randall Grichuk, Scott McGuff, Josh Bell, and utility infielder Kevin Newman. Highly recommend you go back last week to listen to that conversation with Jesse Friedman, where he brings up the name Josh Naylor at first base. If they don't bring back Christian Walker, which I think in a lot of ways they would rather not bring him back, because that's going to bring them a draft pick, since Walker expected to decline the qualifying offer. That gives the Diamondbacks a draft pick, and then they can still go out and replace Walker's production. That's part of the CBA. It's been that way for a while now. If you give a guy a qualifying offer and they reject it and sign somewhere else, you get a draft pick. The Rockies had that happen with Trevor Story. They did not give a qualifying offer to John Gray, so he left and they got nothing for him. Trevor Story, they did get something for him. They got a draft pick, and they're still waiting on that to happen. And here we are going on 4 years. So in this case, for the Diamondbacks, you can let Christian Walker go. You get that draft pick, and you can still go and replace that production because you are still in your window of contention. Nathaniel Lowe, Yandy Diaz, Ryan Mountcastle, also others viewed as fits for the Diamondbacks. Rule 5 deadline is today. We saw Tampa Bay add Joe Rock, former Rockies prospect who was acquired last spring by the Rays in that rather interesting deal that we're still trying to figure out, where the Rockies acquired Greg Jones. And we'll see what happens with Joe Rock going forward. If that ends up being one of those trades the Rockies look back on and say, yeah, that might not have worked out for us quite as much as we had hoped. All right, I gone long here, but I want to talk about Andrés Galarraga. Andrés Galarraga appreciation post last week. So I am signed up for it's not a weekly newsletter. It's almost a daily newsletter. Horsehide Trivia. The folks over at SABR do that, Society for American Baseball Research. You can sign up for it. Horsehide Trivia. Reach out to me, slide my DMs, and I'll give you the email address. You sign up, you'll get them automatically. Get some really fun baseball trivia. And there's a theme for the entire week that you figure out by the end. Again, you don't really have to participate. You can just get the trivia. It's great. And one of the answers was Andrés Galarraga. And then over the weekend, of course, was the anniversary of the expansion draft back in 1992. And, of course, the anniversary of Andrés Galarraga signing a 1-year deal with the Colorado Rockies, the first player ever signed by the Rockies, their first ever superstar, and had to go down the rabbit hole and really just want to give a lot of love to Andrés Big Cat Galarraga. Want to give some love to Brianna right here. Phillies in 2025. I mean, yeah, they're going to be one of the favorites. Certainly to win the NL East again. You know, Atlanta's going to be gunning for them, especially with Acuna coming back. He should be healthy. Spencer Strider, you might not get back until about midseason. Even then, he won't be the Spencer Strider you might expect him to be. And the Mets. The Mets are always going to be a problem as long as Uncle Steve is spending big in free agency. But Andrés Galarraga, listen, the answer to all of these questions is Andrés Galarraga. But think about it for just a second about how great of a career he had. So underrated, the first superstar for the Colorado Rockies. We talked plenty about Todd Helton being the first Mr. Rocky, Sure. That timeline started in 97. And you talk about Larry Walker being the first Hall of Famer, right? 95, he comes in, first year of Coors Field. But in 93, 94, the guy who held down the fort for the Rockies was Andrés Galarraga. And I firmly believe one day Galarraga will be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. It could be 50 years from now. But I think when people go back and really start to look at what he was able to do over a very long and very successful career, he deserves to be enshrined in Cooperstown, especially when you consider the fact that there's not a lot of first basemen who played baseball in the 1990s in the Hall of Fame. Steroids, PEDs, okay, fine. But you can't have nobody manning first base when it comes to 1990s. Fred McGriff is in there, few other guys. But Big Cat, come on. So listen to these questions. Who is the first player after Carl Yastrzemski to lead his league in all three legs of the Triple Crown? Yastrzemski won it with the Red Sox. Not sure of the year. 73? But no player had won the batting crown one year, maybe the home run title another year, maybe the RBI title a third and different year. No player had ever done that since Carl Yastrzemski legitimately won the Triple Crown until Galarraga came along, led the league in batting average in 1993 with a 370 batting average. In 96, his 47 homers led the National League, and his 150 RBI led the NL and the majors, completing all three stats for the Triple Crown. Next question up. Were I making up the trivia? Actually, you know what? Let me go back into my notes here, because the thing that Horseside Trivia does is they ask a question and then they give you some hints. So hint number one, he hit 40 home runs for the team who released him right after the season. And he was picked up by another team and promptly hit 40 for them. So I hadn't remembered, and I'm very curious how the contract situation worked out for that, of why he was released by the Rockies and then still went off and signed a 3-year deal with Atlanta. So his contract, how many more years did he have on his deal? I don't have any track record of that. I need to poke around a little bit. I'm confused, but sure, hit 41 homers in 97 with the Rockies. And then because Todd Helton was going to be the first baseman in 98, Galarraga signs with Atlanta and then hits 44 home runs for them. Another hint was he's the only player to be hit by a pitch in each of his first 3 games in a season. Think about that. Hit by a pitch the first 3 games of a season. Okay, that's unique. What if I told you it happened against the Rockies? Yes, as a member of Atlanta, he was drilled by Pedro Stasio, Rolando Arroyo, and Brian Bohannon, respectively. That's wild. Now, that on its own does not mean why he should be in the Hall of Fame, but nevertheless, that's a fun fact. All right, now were I making up a little trivia for the Big Cat, I would have also added these questions to Horseside Trivia. First one would be, who holds a piece of the Major League record for homering in 3 consecutive innings? That's right. Galarraga, June 27th, 1995, 4th player at the time to ever do it. It looks like about 12 have done it, the most recent coming in 2019. Who homered in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning on May 17th, 2019? That would be none other than Chris Bryant. Because baseball. That's why. Who had the highest batting average by a right-handed hitter since Joe DiMaggio batted .381 in 1938? That's right, the Big Cat. .370 batting average in 1993, which would be his first of 2 Comeback Player of the Year awards. Question, who finished 7th in MVP voting and was released by the club in which he represented as the all-time leader in home runs and the all-time leader in RBI to make room for a future Hall of Famer and also to only sign a 3-year deal with his next team? Again, Galarraga in 97 made room for the Todd father, Todd Helton, who finished with 399 home runs and at the time was 36th on the all-time home run list when he retired in 2005. Yes, Andrés Galarraga. He is now tied for 59th. Still, top 100 players with homers. Top 100 home run performers. Big Cat, 59th right now. Retired, 36th. And then finally, who was the first Rockies player inducted into the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame? Big Cat, Andrés Galarraga, back in 2007. Make sure you're following me on all the social medias at Patrick D. Lyons or at Patrick D. Lyons MLB, at Rockies Insider as well. Make sure you're going over to the YouTube channel to watch all the videos. Go back and listen to plenty of the evergreen conversations with Jesse Friedman, Drew Goodman, Manny Randhawa, so many more folks. Appreciate you coming by, giving me this momentum. But that momentum, as you know, it's only as good as my next show. So I'll talk to you then.